What can I do for you, Snake?
This is Snake. I've infiltrated the offices here at Game Trailers, and I've been contacted by someone who calls himself Keeley. The site is demanding I reveal crucial intel about my latest campaign against Outer Heaven. They're using some kind of interrogation tactic called the bonus round, and I don't think I can stay quiet much longer. Snake out.
Hey everybody, welcome to the bonus round. I'm Jeff Keeley, and this time in the bonus round, it's a special edition. Yes, Snake has infiltrated the bonus round for a discussion on Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. It's coming out in just a couple of weeks, and I've assembled an all-star panel to talk about the game and the franchise. Joining me first, a return visitor to the bonus round, the general editor of technology at Newsweek, Nguy Kroll. Nguy, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me back, Jeff.
Now, next, we got a very special guest, a guy who has a lot to do with Metal Gear, Mr. David Hayter, the voice of Solid Snake. How are you, David?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Are you going to talk like that for the whole show?
No, I just had something caught in my throat.
And finally, we've got a man who you should be jealous of because he's played through Metal Gear Solid 4 from start to finish twice. It's the editor of the official PlayStation magazine, Rob Smith. Rob, great to have you here on the bonus round.
Thanks for inviting me along.
Now, let's start off by talking about this franchise, Metal Gear Solid. Nguy, why do people love Metal Gear so much?
Well, it's considered to be one of the games that's sort of foundational as far as stealth action, right? The idea that you're not just sort of running into an environment, shooting everything that moves, but getting the lay of the land, hiding behind things, getting the drop on guys, taking them out. And one of the things that Kojima prides himself on with this game is that ideally, with the exception of maybe a boss or two, you should be able to get to the end without actually taking a single life.
Right. It's a good franchise. Now, David, your involvement with it dates back to Metal Gear Solid, right?
That's right, 98, I think, was the first
So it's
game.
a decade of you with Metal Gear Solid?
That's right.
Did you have any idea when you first got that voiceover role, what you were stepping into?
No, well, I didn't have any idea that it would go on as long as it did. We did have an idea that it was going to be a big game, that they were pushing it very seriously, and even from the first day that I auditioned, they had the artwork up on the walls, and it was the artwork that came out with the game, and so you could see that it was something really special, and that the design was amazing, and the producers were so excited about the sort of the breakthroughs in gameplay. So we got an idea that it was going to be a big game, but to think that it was going to go on as long as this, I had no idea.
And you play through the Metal Gear games, right? You're not just a guy who's a voice actor. You actually, you played through 2, 3. Have you played through 4 yet?
No. I played a little bit of it at E for All, which was pretty amazing. But yeah, I play them not for any professional reason, but just because if you were in a video game, you'd play it.
See how you turn out, right? Well, Rob's the lucky guy who's actually played through it.
I'm jealous.
He just asked me how he ended up in the game.
We don't want to spoil
I didn't tell him,
right?
No.
Yeah. You don't want to spoil it. Now, Rob, for the PlayStation audience, Metal Gear, this is one of the biggest games of the year for the PlayStation 3 fan, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Being a PS3 exclusive is a huge deal, and there's been so much interest in the build-up. We've talked a lot about the next generation and all these new consoles. Kind of feels like, having finished through this game, it starts with Metal Gear.
Really? Wow, so it's that good?
Yes.
Better than Halo, better than Gears of War?
Yes.
Why is it so great, Rob?
Well, picking up on what Nguy was saying about sort of the background of the franchise, I think it's also so fascinating is the relationship of the characters. And you really get to feel like these are people that either, if you couldn't go out for a beer with them, you could certainly hang out and have a conversation. But that well-rounded and well-defined. And so when you get into your action stuff, you go stealth, sneak, do the actual gameplay, but then the relationship of the characters just makes it, adds a different layer that really video games have only started really developing in this generation.
Right. Now, David, one of the things I think people love, as Rob mentioned about the franchise, is the story. But some people think it's almost, too complicated. There's too much story in the Metal Gear series. Is it hard for you even sometimes to follow what's going on when you're doing all the voices and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of back and forth with the producers and people that really know the game to say, well, who's this character? And names will come back, and I'll have to be reminded as to what they did in the prior games. It's because it's not like a movie.
It's like
which is 2
30
hours long.
movies.
Exactly. Each one is 16, 18 hours of of movies, so it's immensely complex, and it is difficult to keep track of them. But that's also, I think, what makes it so immersive. You really feel like you've stepped into the middle of many different relationships and a fully realized world.
And Guy, do you think American audiences, do they really understand the story of Metal Gear? Because some people complain that it's a little convoluted, and that they appreciate parts of it, but other parts are hard to understand. What's your take on it?
Well, the mythology goes back to even before Metal Gear Solid. I mean, there are bits and pieces of the prehistory to Solid from the original Metal Gear games that they incorporate into it. So the mythology goes way, way back. And so I don't keep track of everything. I don't know everything. But what I like about it is that it's sort of, we're seeing now with TV shows like Lost and Heroes, that there's sort of layers of engagement. So for the real hardcore fan who wants to know everything, there's probably a fact or two on the internet that they can keep refreshed on, and they probably know a lot of it themselves. And then for someone like myself who really loves the games, I can still parachute in and trust that it'll catch me up on the essentials. And if I want to know more, then I can go to a fact too and find out this information.
Right, absolutely. Now, what do you think is the theme of Metal Gear in this franchise, Rob? Because Kojima's spoken about the big ideas in all the Metal Gear games, from nuclear proliferation to passing your genes down to your son to private military corporations. What do you think? What is Kojima trying to tell us with Metal Gear? Do you think is there a message to the Metal Gear franchise?
I think that what you say with all those elements, there isn't sort of one overriding story. I mean, at its heart, Metal Gear 4 is the story of Snake against one bad guy, and if you want to boil it down to that level, that's what you can enjoy and take out of it.
Right.
But it's when you listen to all the exposition of the rest of the story that you start finding out all these different themes. And I don't think you can nail it down to one, because I was stunned going through how many different facets of what we might consider important political discussion today were actually brought up. Never with really a direction and an answer, but
right.
Certainly with a question of what is this? Why would you listen to this, and what would you do in this situation?
So, David, when you're going through the script and working on the dialogue, I mean, are you being given sort of hints and tips about sort of what Kojima's, the message he's trying to convey in this game?
Well, only in that I read the scripts. I don't sit down with Hideo and say, well, what are we going for here?
What's Snake's motivation?
I just get handed a pile of paper like this and I leaf through it. But I really feel that there's a very strong questioning of war, and with this character in particular, that he's exceptionally good at military combat, and yet every time he goes in, he's screwed over by his superiors. He's never given the full story. It always comes down to, do his orders mean something? Is it something honorable that he's going into, or is it something twisted? And it's really, and there's so much in this game in particular, Metal Gear 4, about private military companies and things that really apply to to the war economy, which is what they call it in the game, and that's really applicable to today. It's astounding.
And Guy, you just recently interviewed Kojima. I mean, you think, is there a message that he's trying to send with the Metal Gear franchise?
Well, I did actually speak with him just this morning up in San Francisco before coming down here, and one of the things he talked about is this idea of sort of, I guess, like eternal return, is that these things have always been with us. They just have different names in different times. Mm-hmm. And so, a comparison he made was to Yojimbo and Seven Samurai and movies like that, like where you had, in feudal Japan, you needed warriors to keep the peace. And then in other generations and other times, there's soldiers. And in other times, in peacetime, it's policemen. And in the world we live in today, it's private military corporations. So it's like the idea that these things are always with us. War is in some sense always with us, or danger is always with us. How do we respond to that? And I think he wants to sort of not give answers, but raise questions about how are we dealing with war and conflict in the moment we're in right now. And Metal Gear Solid 4 is in part his response to that, because Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2 even, they sort of come out of the 80s, the post and early 90s, the post Cold War era. And obviously Japan has like a very strong relationship to, the Cold War, the threat of nukes, because Japan is the country where nuclear weapons were dropped. Right. And you see that throughout Japanese culture, anime and those kinds of things. But now he's sort of pushed that even further. I'm sure there's some, well, Rob would know, I'm sure there's some Metal Gears.